Okay, good morning, everyone. This is Lance from Clear Process Solutions. Welcome to our web tips for May 2016. This month, we're going to be talking about transaction topics. Just want to go over some items at the beginning. Everyone is on mute, but if we have some questions, feel free to type them in the chat, and we'll review those questions from time to time through the presentation. And then we'll have some time at the end for any open discussion. If anyone has any comment, you can raise your hand at that time, and we'll see if we can unmute the mics and allow you to speak in person instead of through the computer. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and get started here. A little bit about Clear Process Solutions, because some of you may be new to our web tips this month. So just want to let you know what our company is about. We offer many different lines of lean-based products and services. So most of you may know us for our Winshuttle workflow and Winshuttle transaction and query type work, but we have other items as well that we're getting into for like lean dashboards. We'll talk a little bit about the dashboard product here called Process BI, lean infrastructure, and we have the ability to replicate servers in a quick fashion to enable you to do better testing of patches and upgrades and those types of things as well. We also have an imaging division where we can do OCR, optical character recognition, and we integrate that with the workflow as well. So if you get a scan from a customer, we can take information off that form and kick off the form and workflow. So that's a little bit about our company and what we offer. And we're all about the lean-based products and services to help companies run more effectively and efficiently with what they're doing. Okay, a little bit about our dashboard tools here. The Process BI dashboard, we have this as a package offered through CPS. And what it does is it's plug-and-play dashboard capabilities directly looking at your Winshuttle workflow space. So when you get this product, all we do is change your database connection. So it's looking at your data, and you're going to be able to instantly see information regarding your processes. So it gives you task durations, what things are open, what people are late, and so on. So this is a great product that we've released in the last couple of months, and it's really really taken off. Talking about Solution Care. Solution Care is our monthly block offer for help. It's just our outsourced help desk. And with your Winshuttle maintenance, you're getting a few items. When you pay Winshuttle your dollars every year, you're getting production issues support, upgrade support, and product updates. So the ability to upgrade and fix bugs and things like that. But with Solution Care, you're getting a lot more. So it's a monthly offering with us. It could be 5 hours a month, 10, 20, whatever is right for your needs. You get many other offerings along with that. So we can help you with SharePoint. We can help you with things like we're doing today, tips and tricks. Training, we can use those hours for training your associates on forms and workflows, scoping projects, and so on. So many other things are involved in Solution Care. All right, so moving on to the topic of the day, web tips. So what is web tips? It's our monthly way to stay involved with the Winshuttle community. Every other month we talk about forms and workflow-based topics, and on the other months we talk about the desktop tools, transaction, query, direct, a little bit of central, to make sure everyone is getting some knowledge and a little bit of free training, if you want to call it that, or just some things to help you along with your day-to-day basis of using these tools. And all of our recordings are available on our YouTube site. I think on our Solution Care portal, we have all of the links to all of the previous Solution Care or web tip recordings. So without further ado, I wanted to introduce you our speaker for this month, Elisa Valles, been with our company now for a number of months. She's been using the tool for quite some time, a number of years, 5 or 6 years. She's been using the Winshuttle workflow tool, and is a great asset for knowledge in that area. She's also been using the transaction tools for probably the same amount of time, if not more. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Elisa. And Elisa, let me go ahead and make you presenter, and we will go ahead and get started with that.
Thank you, Lance. Let me show my screen. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. Today we are going to discuss topics around the desktop, mainly transaction, but just share with you some of the challenges that I've been presented in the last couple of months working for Clear Process Solutions. So the first topic we're going to talk about is maintaining customer partners. This is something we do commonly when we're maintaining our customers. We have to add them additional partners to those customers. And so I'm going to show you some of the things that we've done with our transaction tools to automate this customer partner addition. And then we're also going to take a look at the MIRO transaction, a little bit more on our finance side, to look at how we automated MIRO using transaction and then eventually all the way into a form process, which we won't be showing you today, but at least showing you how we use those T codes to assist us with automating the MIRO transaction. So with that, we'll go ahead and talk about the first one, which is maintaining our customer partner functions. So the problem here was sometimes we have T codes that don't always play friendly when we're using transaction. They might not have the buttons on the screen to allow us to insert new items. They might not allow us to move around easily. They might have been coded using the SAP GUI, and we're unable to automate that process. So the problem that we had here is we needed to maintain our partner functions, but if you're familiar with the partner function screen in XD02, it's not the friendliest screen. So we had thought about maybe other ways that we could do that. And so what I'm going to do is walk you through what we did in order to solve that issue. So let's first just take a look at, for those of you who might not be as familiar with this T code, we're going to just take a look at the customer. And so I've got a customer here. I'm going into XD03. We're going to take a look at that customer and take a look at the partner functions on this screen. So we actually use this functionality with not only adding partners, but also updating partners. Okay, here we are. So I've gone into the sales data screen and I'm looking at the partner function tab, and you can see that I have my 4 standard partners here. But if I wanted to add another ship to, maybe change a bill to account, I would need to automate this process. And so I'm going to jump into the change mode just so we can see how the screen works. Notice as we just kind of tool around the screen, we can see that we do have a delete button. That was nice. We've got some sorting here. We could use descending or ascending order. And we can do some positioning based on the partner function. And also the counter number. So really those are fairly limited. Different things you could do, different articles, even Winshuttle has mentioned, you could do a descending sort, and then maybe do a SP, which would be looking for the last partner function. And you can see that it does bring us to where we want to be, but then we still have to use our cursor to go down to the next line. It's doable, but it's not maybe what we want. And then what if you had a Z partner or a Q partner or something where SP might not get you down to the bottom row? So you can see that there are some limitations with automating this screen for the mere purpose that we don't have an insert button. We don't have an easy way to position ourselves to that new row, which you sometimes see on some T codes, but not on this one. So in our thought process, we said, how can we automate this? Well, some of you might be familiar with a T code called XD99. It's a way for us to do mass changes, but it doesn't have to be mass, against the customer tables. So I've gone into XD99, which is our mass maintenance, and we can see here that it defaults to our table here. There's some information about a variant, and then all the different tables are listed. And the one that we were trying to update is the customer master partner functions. So if we go ahead and click on this one and hit execute, if you're not familiar with this T code, we're going to go ahead and take a quick look at it. You can see that from here, I can do a couple of different things. Once I'm in this table, I can change data or I can create data. Well, if I was going to do an add here, I wouldn't want to be changing existing data. I'd want to be creating data. If I was doing an update, I'd want to be doing change data and not create. So for this scenario, we're going to go ahead and assume we're going to do an add. So we would actually say, I want to add. And we would come over here and we could key in our information and pull up the customer we wanted to add a partner to. One other thing we're going to do is just tell it not to change existing data. We're only going to want to add data. And so here, this is where you would put in your information that you are going to search for to get up to your customer. You got a really pretty easy account here. And what partner function you want to add. And then here comes back that counter piece. That's a challenge because you need to know, you probably already have one, but you might have two, you might have three, who knows? Every customer is different. So one thing we did is played with what we called maybe partner 99, assuming that we won't have more than 99 partners for one particular partner function. We thought, hey, this might work. So let's go ahead and hit enter on this and execute. And you can see now what we've come into. If you're not familiar with this T code, it's a way to do mass changes. We're only going to do one change at a time because we needed to implement this in a form where we were updating one customer at a time. So what we need to do here is we need to add our customer number. If we remember back our XD02, all we really did, there are a couple of different fields we can add, but the main one we needed to add was that customer number. So we could add that by, and again, what we're doing here is all very manual, but I'm going to show you how we can automate this. So we need to add our customer number to our grid down here so that we have a place to key that customer number. So what we're stating here is for this customer sales org division channel partner function and add it to customer 99 or partner number 99, we want to add another customer. Maybe it's 110. We could save that, it would update it, everything would look pretty and we could see. But in order to actually set this up for transaction, we're going to have to create what we call a variant. So I'm going to back out just so that I can show you how to create the variant. So what we want to do is the pieces that we just did, we want to put inside of a variant is what SAP calls it. In a sense, it's the things that we want to keep inside or that we don't want to have to click on and do every time. So we're going to create the variant now. So I'm going to go through those steps again by just going through the screens and then we'll save it. So important to make sure, I didn't do this the first time, make sure that we remember, are we changing for this variant? Or are we creating a variant for create? And we are creating a variant for add. So we're going to say don't change existing data, but we do want to create new data. And so again, you're going to capture this in your recording, but you can go ahead and just get your variant saved. You're going to need to go ahead and key this information. And then you can always change it in your script or decide if you want it hard-coded, whatever the case might be. And then we're going to go ahead and execute that. And we're going to go ahead and make sure that we have the right field that we need. There are a couple additional fields here. If you need to add those too, you can. I'm going to keep it simple. Just your one customer number and click OK. Now basically this is our variant. And so we want to save this variant so that every time we pull up this variant, the screen does this very same functionality. So let's go ahead and go up to the Go To, do a Save as Variant, and give it a name. We can give it anything. I'll just give it demo for now, a description. You can give it anything. And we'll use that later in our recording. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. It's already there, so we'll say demo 2 and hit check. Now our variant has been saved. So let's back out a couple of screens just so you can see how that variant is used. We have our variant list here. We could pick the one we just created and execute. Notice it knows that we're doing a create and all the values are here, so we'll just hit execute, and it's now waiting for our little bit of data entry for the customer number. Okay, so let's back out now that we have our variant and talk a little bit about how would we implement this variant. Of course, it's important to test your variant and make sure that your variant is working before you do your actual recording. I could have actually done that, but then I'd have to clean up after myself. So let's pop over to transaction and let's take a look at, I do already have the recording made. We'll take a close look at that. Most of you probably know how to do recording, so I'm not going to spend too much time on re-recording this, but let's talk about the recording that was created. So we actually stepped through the recording. As you can see here, we picked our partner, our add partner function, which was our variant, and then we actually got into the next screen and we ended up keying in all of these values, which notice that when we record those in transactions, they're very generic here. So you might think about changing your spreadsheet or even actually changing these values to be maybe what the actual field is. Makes it a little easier when you're mapping this into forms that you can actually see that that's the customer number, maybe the next one's the sales org, such as that. So that'll help make this a little cleaner when you're implementing this. And you can see that I've mapped it to, you know, A, B, C, D, E, F. And on the last one is our F, which is our actual information we're entering, which is our partner number. Now I went ahead and chose to leave the partner counter defaulted to 99. You could choose to change that, but since this is going to be our add one, we're always going to be adding basically, and we'll always want to get an available spot. If this was change or update, you would probably need to be knowing what is the next available partner number. So if you're going to implement this in a form, you might have to do a query, or if you're going to implement this in a spreadsheet fashion, of course, your end user would need to know what's the next available partner function. Maybe they have 2 ship tos and they're adding the 3rd ship to, so the partner counter would be 3. Okay, we've got our save here, and then this cancel right here just backs us out of that final screen so that we can exit out of the transaction. Perfect. So we'll go ahead and just back out of here. I'm not going to save any of our changes, but let's go ahead and just test this guy to see how it looks. I'm going to pop back over here, go into XD03. We'll pull up our customer again, and what we want to do is we want to add a SH ship queue for 1010, and so you can see here on my screen it's not added. Let's pop back over to our actual script, and then let's take a look at our spreadsheet. So I have it pre-coded for us. We've got everything ready to go. So let's actually just run this and see how it goes. So we'll give it a test, sign in, and watch the magic happen. Processing row 1. Pop over and peek on the spreadsheet if we're anxious. Still running. So we actually took this in a customer form process where we needed to add and update partners. So we took these transactions and turned them into XML, and we're able to implement that in our form. With a little bit of query for the update, we're allowed to allow the user to tell us which partner they're either changing or if they need to add a partner. Okay, so it's done. So let's just pop back over to the spreadsheet real quick. We can see changes have been made. So let's jump back over to SAP and take a look at the customer. We'll go back into XD02. We'll go 3. Jump in there and we should see our new partner. And there it is. So we've added our new ship to partner 1010, and you can see it's added and all of that, and we didn't have to deal with this screen. So what was our solution? Is sometimes we find that the T code that our business users are using might not always be the right T code for us to automate. So as Winshuttle developers, we tend to have to challenge SAP to say, is there another way I can solve this problem? And in here, what we found is using the XD99 transaction code was much simpler than doing this with an XD02 to add partners or to update partners. Great. Okay. Let's talk about the next one. So our next is using MIRO with transaction. So another project that I've been working on is automating invoices. As Lance mentioned, we have a tool called SideGen that gives us the ability to do imaging, where we can image those invoices and then bring them into SharePoint and then automate that through a workflow. So the challenge we had here is we needed to be able to present this information to our buyers who had a particular PO, and now the customer was invoicing us, and we had received those goods, but we now needed to process that we received the invoice. We had the invoice, everything matched up, we received those goods, and we were ready to release payment. So with that being said, we needed to take a closer look at how we could present this information correctly to our customers, to our buyers on the screen, so that they could simulate what they would do in SAP, but be able to do it through our workflow. The image would come in from SideGen and allow them to see that image on the screen, and then from there be able to automate that. And so the challenge is how do we get that information on the screen? And we went through a couple of different iterations. You know, do we read the PO details? Do we actually go to the PO tables and pull that up? What we see on ME23N? How do we determine if the goods have been received? Do we have to look at the history and look for the goods received? Had items been deleted off the PO, and those items we wouldn't want to show? So you can see there's lots of questions that came to us in order to find how to automate this. Now, we say, well, why don't we just use MIRO? The MIRO transaction basically is thinking through all of those questions and presenting to the user the items that still are available to be invoiced, those that have had good received, those that have been fully received. And so we said, why couldn't we use MIRO? And there's challenges with MIRO that we said, hey, okay, this might work. And so sometimes we're also presented with maybe doing what we call a prototype. So let's actually take a little closer look at the MIRO transaction. For those of you that might not be as familiar with MIRO, we'll take a quick look at that just so that you can see how that T code works. I'll expand my screen here just a little. So I've actually gone in on a PO that I have here in my test system, and you can see that I have one line that's already received all the goods, and one line that we haven't, or we've invoiced all the goods, and one line where we haven't invoiced the goods. It's highlighted here, row 2. And really what we wanted to show our customers is we needed to show them, our buyers, so I see you got an invoice. What's this invoice for? Did you receive all 10 of these? Were they for this amount of money? So we needed to show them this information, but in a format. And how are we going to do that? You know, a lot of times we think, so this is a transaction, but we can read data out of SAP just as easily as we can update data out of SAP. So maybe that when we think of query, we think, oh, we're reading data out of SAP. Well, I need a table, and I need it all to be down to the table level. Well, this data is really not down in one table. It's derived from many tables. So we said, maybe we could use MIRO to display this information on the screen. And a couple of things that we needed to know about MIRO is, how do we read through these lines? Well, again, here's another T code that isn't really too friendly on how we can position. We can position based on item number, 1, 2 here, and we could go through. We could position on searching terms, but that doesn't really help us either. We could do a find, but what we really needed to do is we needed to loop through these items, read that data out to display that to our customer. And so when we look at this transaction or this screen, some of the different things that you see is, well, down here it tells me which line I'm on out of a total. So I can see when I've got 1 of 1 and I'm on 2 of 1. Here I've got 2 lines. So there's this value right here, which is really the total lines that display. So if I went into a different PO that had 29, this would say 29. And what we needed to know is how many rows. If we knew how many rows, we could create a transaction script that would read through these by using the position term down here to get us on our different items. So you notice that when I did a 2 and then clicked next item, it actually brought myself to 2. So I could use this piece here to bring myself to the row that I needed to go on. So if there was 29 items, I would just loop through 29 times reading these values. So that's what we decided, but we weren't quite sure that all was going to work. So we put a prototype together, gave it to the customer, said, try this and see if this would solve the solution before we automate. So let's take a closer look at what we actually did. So I'm going to minimize a couple of these screens, and let's even minimize this for the time being. So we're going to back out of this and take a look at another transaction. We did what I call a MIRO read total lines. So I'm going to open that up and let's just take a closer look at that script. So what we did in this script is we actually were doing a read. So we recorded us putting in some basic information. MIRO is a little particular. He will not allow you to get as far as here if you don't have at least an invoice date. Sometimes, depending on your type of PO you're using, you'll have to have a reference. That's pretty much required. You can't get any further than that in order to get the screen to pop up. So you notice that I did actually map out the date, the reference document, the amount in the current document, and also the purchase order. Let's go back and take a quick look at that purchase order. So that purchase order is right here. So we mapped that piece too. So we basically keyed in the date, the reference, the amount we could key in, which normally would be the amount that we're clearing our invoice for. But since we're just doing a read here, we just used a 0 because we're really only saying, hey, I just need to get into this T code to do some reading. I'm not really going to process anything. So we hard-coded a 0 there. And then we also put in our purchase order number. So let's minimize this again. So that was our entry information that we needed to do in order to get our transaction to actually come up. We needed these 3 pieces of information. And then what we wanted it to do was read back the number of items. And I actually read back the balance too, because later I needed to make sure that what they were invoicing matched what the balance of was remaining. So I actually read out the total too. So we'll show you that field. That's actually this field right here. So you might notice that these fields are not editable, so you can't actually edit them. You can't actually touch them. So when we do this is we do a recording, but then we actually look for our disabled fields here and find those fields on our filtered out information. So we now have a script and we now can read those values back. So let's just take a quick look at that so you guys can see how that works. Let's go ahead and open up our spreadsheet if it's not already open, and it is. And so I've got the 3 values that we need here, so we're going to go through. I think I'll do this one in step-by-step mode, just so that you guys can see how it works. But 1.2, anytime you're using MIRO, you can't have MIRO open. So it does lock it. It's kind of like a locking mechanism where you can't, two people cannot be updating an invoice at the same time. So I gotta make sure I get out of here. Not gonna post anything. And then we can allow this transaction to run. Okay, so we're gonna go on the first one. Go ahead and sign in. We'll go ahead and do this in step-by-step mode just so that you guys can see how this works. Give SAP a second to pop up. He's still thinking. That's one thing when you're doing step-by-step, I always tell my users, don't get jumpy. Because the thing is sometimes the screen pops up on the front and sometimes it doesn't. So if you did a step-by-step and you don't see this pop like this, it might be because you changed the focus. So I always try to just sit back and wait, let it pop. Otherwise, you'll be down here minimizing all your screens, trying to find out where your OK box is, which I'm always like, where's my OK box? Okay, so we have now come in, and you can see the information in red is the data that we keyed. So you can see the date, the reference, the amount, and the script, the PO. And so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK to go on. And as SAP thinks, we can see our line kind of flashing up here. It's going to actually pull up our PO. There's no really magic at this point. Really what we're doing is we're just saying, put in this information and read this data off the screen. So you'll notice in my recording, nothing really happens. Now I'm already getting out. And that is because in my script, I just told it to read the number of lines, which we saw was way down here at the bottom of our screen. I can't even get there. There it is, here. And read this number and give it back to us in our Excel spreadsheet. So I'm going to go ahead and just hit OK. Nothing fancy about that. I'm going to exit out. I'm not posting anything. I just ran in there real quick to get some data and back out. Okay, so now you can see it read that we had 2 rows and this was our balance total. So I actually built another script off of this same spreadsheet, and we're going to use that here in a second. But now what we need to do is we need to say, okay, I now know I have 2 rows. So now I need to build a script that loops me through reading those rows. So let's take a look at that. So we're going to back out of this script, and we're going to go to our read line script. So let's take a look at it, and let's go to the details. So again, MIRO requires that basic information. What's your document? What's your reference? What's your purchase order? And again, here, I'm just reading information. So then as I scroll down, I can see in my transaction script, I have a loop. And that loop is based on how many detailed records that I have. So I do have a header and detailed column here that I'm going to loop through as many records as I have, okay? You can actually see I'm going to read back the item, the amount, and the quantity. So we can see those all mapped out here to J, K, and I. And we're just going to use that position field to loop us through our we have. So if we've got 29 rows, we'd loop through this 29 times. We'd go to row 1 through 29, reading back this information. Okay, let's take a look at preparing, easy to say, our spreadsheet. I kind of cheated here. I've got us some basic information just to save me time from having to key. So right now in Excel, we have to actually do this. When we do this in a form, we can do some fancy JavaScript and create a table that creates this number of rows for us. But when we're doing this in Excel, it's a little manual. So we have to put our H&D in for this script. We've got a header row and 2 details, and we've got row 1 and 2. If we had 29, we would want to fill with all the row counts. And what this position or this field does is it populates that number we're going to increment. So that's our positioner. We're going to go to row 1, row 12, row 18. So let's get rid of all that. We don't need that. We'll go ahead and save this. And I'm not going to do this one in step-by-step. I'm just going to go ahead and give it a run. So this is our read. Seems like, let's just make sure we're on the right script here. Read lines. Well, it seemed like it said total lines. Ah, yes. And we're using the same spreadsheet here, so that's what I'm seeing that. So let's go ahead and give this a run. Again, always check and make sure you're out of the PO, because if you're in the PO, you'll for sure fail. So we'll jump over real quick and just do a quick peek at the spreadsheet. Yeah, you can see it's moving along here. It's reading those items, just waiting to finish up. Back over to here. So I'm demonstrating this to you in an Excel fashion, but this was really designed for an actual form application. So you can see here, there's where it's our 1, 2. The green is what we inputted on our second script, and it read back that 1 had no amount, no quantity. Row 2 had this amount and this quantity. So this is where we can actually take that information and display it to the user for those particular rows. So then our buyer could say, yeah, on row 2, I received 5 at $500 or $600. And he can actually make that change on the form and automate that fashion. Okay, let's go back here and just take a closer look at what we actually did. So we looked at the T code for MIRO, and we saw that there was a way for us to read the line count, and then we were able to create a script that allowed us to read that line count. So that's where we were actually doing our total lines, came back with the number of lines that we read. And then from there, we a script that said, with those total lines, now read that data back out and show me that data in my spreadsheet so that I could then present that information to my buyer to code up this invoice and process it. So the next step would be, of course, creating a postscript that allowed us to take this information, push it back into MIRO, and actually post this transaction. So the solution was to use the T code, MIRO, to read that information, display it to the customer, and then with implementing this into a form, we would be able to use JavaScript to create a table that would allow this information to be housed, so we wouldn't be having to manipulate this. And then in the long run, we'd have a MIRO postscript that would allow us to post that information. So let's jump back over to our presentation, and I'm going to open it up for discussion. So Lance, do we have any questions?
Looking at the list, I do not see any questions, but we will just take a minute here. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in and or raise your hands, and we will see if we can get to you here. Okay, well, we just had a question come in. Let's see what we had. Nope, the question was a comment. All right. Thank you, John, for your good comment. I'm glad everyone was able to attend today. And we just want to wrap up with just one more slide. Elisa, if you can go to the next slide.
Yep.
Just want to let everyone know next month's WEBtips are on June 16th, so feel free to sign up for that. It is a separate webinar for those that are interested in forms and workflow. It is a separate webinar. If you don't have the link, just email us and we can get you that link. But next month is going to be on forms and workflow. And we do have a couple of Winshuttle Hero user group events that Winshuttle is providing. And CPS is hosting an after party after those items as well. So the next one is August 25th in Cleveland. with Applied Industrial as the host, and then November 17th at Kitchener Lighting as the host as well. And I believe there's another one in July that maybe didn't make the cut here I believe at Carhartt in Dearborn, Michigan. So I hope to see you at some of those events. If not, thanks again for joining today, and make sure you sign up for the next month. So thanks again, everybody, and have a great day.